And all right. Hi, my name is
Hi.
Mariah Berlenga-Shevchuk. Today is Thursday, April 30th, 2020. I'm recording this interview from my apartment in St. John's, Portland. And the topic of today's conversation is the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hmm.
And hello, can you please state your first and last name, your birth date and place of birth, and your current location?
Yes, my name is Mekdes Hilete. My birthday is I was born in Ethiopia, 9th of October 2001. And now I currently live in Portland, Oregon.
Awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about your biography, your background, like where you're from, how you came to Oregon, and
Yeah.
where you're living now?
So like I said, I was born in Ethiopia and I was raised there. I had family, my mother, who immigrated to the US, to Portland, right around 15 years ago, a little more than 15 years ago, I'd say. About 14 years ago, I'd say. So I had like family connections here, and she had family here. So when I was, you know, being raised by my dad back home in Addis, in the capital. And then when I was 14 years old, my mom wanted to bring me over here. So I joined her here in Oregon. So yeah, I've been living here since. I have just like I'm in high school currently, and I'm a senior. And yeah, I've been, going to high school since high school started. I've been in the US and in Portland.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you describe your experience with the pandemic thus far?
Yeah, I mean, it is so interesting because I think there are so many levels to it. One is, I think, just like deep sadness for all the people that have lost their lives. We just keep hearing, all these people and, their families, they have loved ones, the people that care about them. And it just like the numbers just keep growing. And I try to make a personal effort to just like see beyond the numbers and realize that when people say like 50,000 people have died, that really means like 50,000 souls, 50,000 dreams, 50,000 potentials, just so many things. And I try to think about all the people that are being affected. And even if not like death, through sickness and through job loss and through just like a lot of dysfunction that comes out of that. I have been, privileged to be in a household where I don't have to worry about like my basic, safety or my basic like needs. Um, but there's also the need for social connection. And for me as a high schooler, I'm always, I would love to be intellectually, evolving all the time and just connecting with people and connecting with my teachers and everything. And I think the pandemic has made it hard for me to kind of have that, same progression of being a learner and being a community member in my regular as like in the regular um, process of how we did it before. So I think one, it's just like deep sadness about all the things that are happening outside, but also just like a feel of loss in my own personal life where I don't get to do the same things that I used to do before.
Yeah, I totally hear that. And to go a little bit more specifically into what's happening with school, so
Mm.
as a high school senior, how has this affected your last year of high school?
It has affected, I think, in many ways. I mean, the very like primal level, we're not like required to continue like learning.
Oh,
And because the Oregon State Department of Education said if you've met your graduation requirements by the time the lockdown happened, you're like effectively graduating. So I think that's a good thing, because I think it removes a lot of barriers for a lot of people, because at this time
Mhm.
it's really hard, to, just get everything together as a senior at this point. So I think one is just like that happens. So we don't get as much of like we don't have as much of an intellectual life, because it's not a requirement anymore, and our like a lot of the resources are going more toward helping kids like graduate. And it's just like, when it's not like school is not a requirement, stuff like that, engagement sort of lowers down, and everybody's trying to be mindful of like, people's lives and everything. So it's really hard to just have like that like academic growth.
Mhm.
And for people who, like, I want to go to college and I want to continue learning. So I can definitely see a challenge in that, where I think this disruption in my education might down the road affect my academic outcome and my academic engagement as I move forward in my academic life. That's one thing. And I do think school is just like also a very social, space. And I think that social connection has been, lost significantly. I still can connect with friends through, social media and other formats, and I can still email my teachers, and their teachers at this time are pretty great. But we don't have that shared space that we used to occupy together. And I think that really significantly lowers our social interaction, which really aids and is a big part of our academic and intellectual life.
For sure. Yeah. Have you seen anything from teachers or from fellow students that has really aimed at combating like that lack of social connection right now?
Yeah, so we have regular check-ins in our main class, um, and our teachers have been really like amazing, amazing. And Jefferson teachers, like, just shouting out for my school. Um, our teachers are pretty awesome people, just in general. So they really care about us as students and as people. So they really make an effort to connect and to reach out, and they really make themselves very much available. So if I need anything, I just like it's just an email away, and there are a lot of people who can set up time for like video
Mhm.
and connecting through that. So that has been really helpful. And also our our vice president of the class created this Instagram page where we're gathering like, college plans, and posting people's college plans, and what we're going to do next year and things like that. So that is also a nice shared space where we can appreciate each other.
That is. If it's a public Instagram account, can you share it with me or do you think
Yeah,
it's
sure.
private?
I think it's private.
Okay.
But
Then no
yeah.
worries. I love that. That's a really nice way to share space, even when you can't be physically together.
Mm.
So speaking of college, how has the pandemic affected your plans for college in the fall?
It is very interesting, because I think one of the biggest things for me right now is just like worrying if I'm gonna be on a college campus next year.
Hmm.
I have not received any like ultimatum from the college as to whether or not we're going to be on campus for the fall term, or what's going to happen. But I am a first generation college student. I am going to be a first generation college student, and I know that it's going to be, like the campus life and just being in campus, on the campus, I think is a very integral part of the education that I really worry.
Hmm.
Just entering college from like my desk at home, like in my
For
bedroom,
sure.
like, yeah, it's challenging. And I think a lot of us, and by us, I mean a lot of like my friends and just me, have a lot of like barriers getting into this point. And I just don't want us to kind of fall through the cracks at this time, where we're not getting like as much access and support.
Hmm.
And I think support is a very abstract thing, where, you know, just like like I'm a biomed major, and like I don't know if like how like my I'm gonna do my labs like next year, if it's gonna be a virtual class, a virtual
Right.
experience, and just like all the uncertainty about just like it's lockdown, and just like also just financial things. I know that when I move, um I'm gonna need things, and I'm not very much like comfortable right now to ask my mom for like things, and I can just like go out and get a summer job,
Right.
just like a lot of things that I think we could have just like moved on easily through. I think at this time we have to just pause and think about, and might have to find um, sort of supplemental solutions instead of just like problem solving through our daily life.
Yeah. I mean, definitely the traditional experience has been disrupted by this. Where are you attending school in the fall? Sounds like you've been
I
accepted.
Yes, I will be attending Wellesley College in Massachusetts, in Wellesley,
Oh,
Massachusetts. Yeah,
okay. Well, congratulations on all of that.
thank you.
Yeah, that's a big move too, to go from Oregon to Massachusetts and to have to plan that in the midst of a pandemic. I
Yeah.
don't envy you, but I it seems like you will be able to figure it out, whatever is the best way for
Mm,
you and your family.
yeah.
So to continue kind of in that vein, how is the pandemic affecting your family?
Yeah. So I think it's like there are just like so many levels that we talk about. One is just like the constant just like worry about like, are we gonna contract the virus one way or another,
Hmm.
Um when my mother goes grocery shopping, I live with my mom and my aunt, and when they go to grocery shopping, I constantly have a scare of just like, what if, and it's really hard, and we might take a walk and then we see people like not wearing masks, and you're like,
Hmm.
you know, that can be like a point of, contact that we don't know of. And we might have it as well. Like we don't even know whether we have it or not. And I think like that, like with the big uncertainty about just like how like again, like people talk about how it's a unseen um enemy. And I think that really creates a big scare in the mind of people where like we don't know if we have it, we don't know if our neighbors have it, we don't know if we go out this day and do this specific thing, we're going to contract it this way. Grocery shopping, even doing the random things is a lot of stress.
Hmm.
And the other thing is jobs, and how employment is approached at this time. My aunt like is being affected by the lockdown, and she doesn't work, um but she still gets financial support from her employer. But my mom, like, we constantly have to apply to unemployment, and we had like a delay in that and just like processing that, and there was a lot of uncertainty about that, and we had to apply for food stamps and things like that just to get financial support for this time. And also just I feel the worry that my mom has, because there's a lot of economic uncertainty at this time, and I think that is particularly hard. And her boss keeps calling her to work, and she works at it's like a hotel, um a hotel service job, and she just keeps going, because she has to go, and she doesn't have that economic security. She can't say, oh, I don't want to work this job, I don't want to risk the health of my family, and she can't just like do an online,
Hmm.
job, or like something, a remote job, so with that, like she's always scared about just being in that space, and like not trying to get the virus, and not to possibly bring it home. So we always have to take extra precaution, because she has that exposure to the outside world that we're all trying to avoid. um So I think in a lot of ways it's bad. But I would say on the bright side, that I think as a family being together in this time has really helped us. And I just keep thinking about how, I by myself, I don't think I would have like been as healthy, mentally and physically had I been by myself or at college or somewhere like that. And I think having that, even if it's a smaller community of just three women in our house and just like supporting each other and always looking out for each other, I think has made this time a lot easier on us. And I think just the emotional support that we give each other, and I think the love and the community that we build within our house is, you know, significantly helping us thrive at this time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm so sorry that there's so much stress still around things that should be taken care of by our government.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to hear that you have a community within your home. And I would want to ask, how are the people in your broader community responding? And you define what your broader community is.
Yeah, I would say, it's interesting because I think I would say the like second level of like broader community for me is like my school community. Because I spend so much of my time around, Jefferson High School, PCC Cascade, Multnomah County Library, just like that area is just where I spend most of my days and my time. And just from Jefferson, I think everybody's trying to be supportive at this time and just help us like move through this time as best as we can. And I think that's greatly appreciated. And again, just like our Jefferson community, I think is very much open to a lot of like communication, direct communication. We just, I think, as students at Jefferson, we have such great links with our teachers and such openness, and sincerity that I think like if I had a problem or if I needed some emotional support or I needed to talk to somebody, I can just like email them or text them or do something, and I think that'll be fine. And I'll have like a point of contact, and I think I'm very fortunate about that. I do miss, however, this sort of like natural way of connecting where like before you just like walk into a class and like you're in reach of like people and you're contacting and that naturally happens. Now I think like we have to make an effort to kind of make that time. And again, I'm one of those people. I don't really so I try not to associate too much with like cliques, but I just like kind of I like community and I just like contacting different people and being connected to different networks. So I think what has been hard for me is that as within the Jefferson community, I love to try to kind of like move around. I go
Mhm.
to my guidance counselor and I talk to my math teacher and I have friends over here. And then we have clubs. I have a club that I started and we have theater. There's like theater practice and I see mock trial kids when I go to my mock trial meeting, and just you cannot like within a day, like I don't know, like I don't know, more than like 100 people just by seeing. I probably
Mhm.
talked to more than like, I don't know, like 50 people, about 50 people within a day. And that's an extraordinary like number just thinking about. But now, like outside of like this close knit three people community within my house, I can't really connect with like more than two or three or four people in a day. And I think that has like really shrunk sort of like my exposure.
For sure. I feel very much the same way as you. It's yeah, it's a totally different circumstance and it's you can't replicate what it was like before lockdown, now in lockdown. It just
Mm,
takes a different emotional toll on you to connect with people in that way.
yeah.
Do you think that your Jefferson school community is going to be closer after the lockdown is over because of this?
I don't know really. I really don't know. And that is a frightening thought to have, because I know how like close we are, and I know how, Jefferson has a particular history. And, as a freshman, you I didn't really like understand that history, but through the process of being a Jefferson, being a demo, being in that community, you sort of evolve through it, you know. I have a firm belief that Jefferson is a like it's a very particular type of community that you're not, and it's, within the greater Portland, context, and within the context of Oregon, it's a very particular community. So you're not gonna see as many places like Jefferson, like in
Mm-hmm.
this area, and that's just a fact, right? So even I think our uniqueness as people, and as people who congregate in that space, a lot of us are there by choice. A lot of us are people of color. Maybe a lot of us are from you know lower socioeconomic background. you know all those things create, I think, certain dynamics that really, I think, bring us closer, and just the history of our school and the institution that we all are a part of. And I think this is such an unprecedented time that I don't know how that structure would be disrupted after this time.
Mm-hmm.
Because again,
Mm-hmm.
like the factors that make Jefferson what it is have been in that sort of way for a time. And I think that is what makes it. Like, you know, the makers of Jefferson have been tested through time, and they've sustained such an identity that we just evolve through it and we become part of it. But now there's just such a disruption, you know. I don't know how things would change after this. I try not to think about this a lot, but just like even thinking about the economic impact that is coming, right? Nationwide, worldwide. We don't know how things are going to be restructured when we ever get to this normal that we keep trying to reach. So, yeah, I really don't know.
Yeah, it's very tough to say. Does this current moment, you said it's unprecedented, and it certainly is, especially for people our age.
Mm-hmm.
But does this current moment remind you of or connect you to another moment that you've experienced or that you've learned about?
Mm-hmm. I think even if like there's a connection, I would say it's very remote.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think there might be elements of things where, maybe things are like similar in certain ways, but a lot of like what I've been thinking about right now is just thinking about how I think a lot of when I think of the COVID situation, two things come to mind. I just think about how things just suddenly like stopped. I mean, they obviously haven't like totally stopped, but like in a significant way.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a young person, I have not seen, the entire world just like pausing. That's just like we've always thought, and we've always evolved in a world that's just moving all the time. And I think that pause and that change is very significant. And I think the second part is just the changes that are going to happen as a consequence of this big shift.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, I think from a personal journey, and a personal perspective, I think when I moved from Ethiopia to here, I think I felt that kind of thing where there's just like you make a big step, and you're just like you just have to like pause, and like the gravity of the situation just pauses you. It's not you just have to pause. There's not a lot you can do, and you just kind of sort of stand in the moment, and you process things as they come. And I think part of the experience of being an immigrant is sort of processing change as you move through it and as you experience it. And I think for a lot of us now, I think whether we intentionally think about it, whether we like it or not, we're sort of immigrating through experiences. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we've also, does that make sense? Like people immigrate through space,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we're immigrating through experience. We've
Yeah.
all immigrated. We're all immigrants at this time. So I think a big challenge is going to be how are we going to process the change, because
Yeah.
there was a certain reality and now we're in a different one. And there's going to come a time when things are just going to change. So how are we going to deal with that? And it's, as an immigrant myself, there's no predictor of what is to come. You
Mm-hmm.
just process things as they come and as you move through them. And I think that's an interesting time to be in.
Absolutely. Speaking of like taking things day by day, are there any rituals or like things that you're doing during the day to help keep yourself present or to help ground yourself within this greater unknown that we're living through?
Yeah, prayer is something that I do daily. It can look different every day, but I try to, give myself some time to prayer because I know that, whatever situation that I go through, connecting to a higher power always helps me stay grounded. So that's one thing. I try to do, meditation or some sort of like mindfulness. That's another thing. I connect with family members and just checking in because I know I'm just gonna need my social exposure somewhere or another. So, hopefully within a day I have like one or two video chats with someone. So that's also just a nice social exposure. I read. I do some sort of academic work just to also keep my head,
Mm-hmm.
still working and processing things. Right now, it's sort of, I try not to get too caught up in it, but just I have to engage with the news in some
Mm-hmm.
way or another. And I think that naturally prompts some inquiry and reflection, and I just learn as much as I can within a day. And yeah, I think that's one of the core things that I do.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, So I read in your immigrant story interview that
Mm-hmm.
you're pursuing biomedicine, you shared, and
Mm-hmm.
your goal is to become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Has that connection or that life goal, has it taken on any kind of new significance in this moment? And how are
Mm-hmm.
you just approaching that life goal from this moment?
Yeah, I really it has made a big significance. Just seeing, I think, how much healthcare professionals are like on the front lines of this fight and just like really battling it out. Um, I think it's a source of inspiration. I wish it wasn't like this, but just seeing what they do and how much difference they're making, how much impact their work is, generating within this time, and how much protection and security and safety that they're affording us, you
Mhm.
know, I think that's really inspiring as someone who wants to go into that field. And I think it's also a reminder of, I think, why I wanted to pursue this. You know, get into, just the pursuit of this. And one of the things is care. One of my primary goals in life is to care for others and to be present in the lives of others in meaningful ways, in ways that I can make significant change to make their lives better. And I cannot see like a better example than what healthcare professionals are doing right now, to protect all of us. So I think it's a great source of inspiration, just a reaffirmation of, what the profession and you know, that what the profession stands for. And I think what all of us that aspire to it also stand by.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Do you feel that your life priorities or your
Mhm.
personal values have shifted because of this?
Yeah, very, very much. And one of, I think, the important things that I would say that I've gotten out of this experience is just like, I think the reshifting of priorities, rethinking what is important. Um, and, at Jefferson High School, we have a class called Senior Inquiry. And that class is a mix of, English literature and government economics. And we talk about, it's a college level class, and we talk about social justice, community agency, you know, things like that. And, we engage in sort of like what's happening in and around the world, in like through inquiry and critical thinking. And I think that tool has stayed with me, even if like school was closed, even if my school community isn't with me and my senior inc, class isn't with me. I still have those tools to be thinking about and reflecting. And I think one of the things that I realized for myself in this situation is that I need to strengthen my spiritual life. Um, because it just seemed like when everything sort of stopped and, paused, and there were a lot of uncertainties and a lot of questions, and even like the best experts and the best governments couldn't really like substantially, you know, deter what is coming. And I think that kept calling me back to connecting to a higher power and to just strengthening my faith. And I think spending more time with my family also reaffirmed that. I have a strong heritage, um, being an Ethiopian and immigrating from that space. And, I think, just living in the US, I most of my time I just interact with like this culture. But I think since like the world just sort of paused, I have been given the opportunity to engage more with my Ethiopian side and to like really connect with that part of my heritage. And having my mother and spending more time with her, and having my aunt, and those are powerful women who grew up in that heritage. And I think I'm growing into womanhood, and just thinking about how I define that for myself. I'm learning a lot from the women in my life, and I think I'm prioritizing, spirituality and heritage a lot more these days. But I'm also, I think, education has taken a bigger meaning right now, because I think, again, I think we take for granted how much of the world that we just get to inhibit and grow into. We don't, there's not a lot of times when, everything sort of gets disrupted and we have to start from the beginning, or, we have to start from scratch. We're always building upon what others have left us and what others brought us into. I think this time really just shook my ideas of what like society is, what it should look like, and all those things. And I think it has brought out a lot of the flaws of society. It has brought out a lot of the good in society. It has brought out, I think it has, you know, shown us like what we need to work on. And as someone who is always pursuing education, and as someone who is about to go into college and to go into adulthood, I really see a lot of potential in education, in learning, and being a thinker. Um, because now I see more than ever how much thinking, and learning and education and expertise can be helpful in shaping the way we live and dealing with uncertainties and dealing with, even the extreme of situations, the most extreme of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. That brings me perfectly to the last question that I have for you,
Mhm.
which is, do you think society will change in the future because of this? And
I do
if
think so.
And if so, how do you think it will change?
I do think so. And I think again, just learning about inquiry, and again, we in our senior inquiry class talk about community justice, all these things, and I think a really big part of not just gathering knowledge and just being knowledgeable, but also just understanding things. And I think having wisdom is understanding like things at the systemic level,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing how like systems affect people, people affect systems, and how we interact in that sort of way. And I do think now, like I said, we are being shown like healthcare, right? Like that is like now under the light. We see a lot of like how healthcare, how access to healthcare affects people.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of advocacy that we see around universal healthcare, giving people more access to healthcare, and these, I think, areas of society that we've always debated about, and these concepts, these societal ideals and systems that we have debated about, I think are under the light in very particular ways right now.
Mm-hmm.
Before, I think it was just a certain level. You have to have like a certain level of like academic exposure to really converse about
Mm-hmm.
these things. But now, like, I could see it, like it's on the news, like every night, and you're learning about it, and you call your, relatives, and they tell you about their experiences. And, we're going through such I think, a universal experience that a lot of the things that we used to just talk about and debate about in like a hypothetical way, and for a lot of us, it just seemed hypothetical because we didn't have a direct experience with it. Now I think we're engaging with it more because we're seeing it every day, and we're
Mm-hmm.
hearing about it every day, and there's a spotlight on it. So I do think, and I hope, it's a hope that, on a systemic level, I think we open a lot of the door the door for, systemic change, policy change. We open the door for a lot of discussion and dialogue. We open the door for thorough research. I just keep thinking about, whether it be medical research, that is just going to come out of this, pandemic, of just, tons of medical research every year, and like now it's just going to explode because people want to study how this was affecting different communities. And
Mm-hmm.
there's just, I think it's endless. And I think one of the great ways that it just not underestimating the significance of the problem, but I think one of the ways is that it is like, it just seems like we're in a big experiment, and we're seeing a lot of things. And I think for people who want to study things and who want to investigate society on different levels, I think this is a very good chance. And I think in the years to come, this is a really good chance to look at the pieces um, that really just shape the moment as it is. So I hope to see a lot of change on the systemic level, whether it is policy, in how we teach kids and how we think about education, whether it is about healthcare, wage, unemployment. It is opening a lot of conversations, and I think as a learner, I'm very much happy to be engaging and happy to be part of the solution.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I share in your hope for how society will change, and I feel even more hopeful knowing that there are young people like you who are going into this field with such thoughtfulness and intention around what you hope to do and the changes you hope to affect. So, thank you. Is there anything else that you want to share for this oral history?
Um, well, I just want to say thank you for reaching out. I think it's really awesome. And I think, part of, I just think I have a lot of time to think right now. So a lot of what I do is just think. But thinking is good. And I think, you know, going forward, and now, even right now, we just see how much research is crucial.
Mhm.
And going forward, I think it's going to be a big part of the change that we hope to see. Evidence based research and can really make a significant impact in the way that we live. And I'm very much happy to be a part of this, so our archive, and hopefully, aid in the research of the next generation. Maybe I might come and ask for some of the archive from your resource, but I'm just happy to contribute, and I'm happy to be a part of this. So I just want to say thank you, and for your organization as well.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'm going to end the recording, but it won't disconnect us, so hang tight.